The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, December 1st, St. Ralph Sherwin. Sir William Petre, Secretary of State to Henry VIII and the next three monarchs, and initiator of his family's peerages, founded 6 fellowships at Exeter College, Oxford. He himself granted one of them in 1568 to Rudolph Sherwin, a young gentleman of Rodsley in Derbyshire. Rudolph obtained the degree of Master of Arts in 1574. Anthony Wood says that he was regarded as a keen philosopher and an excellent Hellenist and Latinist. The following year, Rudolph was reconciled to the Church and entered the College of Douai, where he received priestly ordination in 1577. A few months later, he moved to the English College in Rome, where he took a very prominent part in the deplorable dissensions between the English and Welsh students. He was one of the 4 who asked Gregory XIII to entrust the direction of the college to the Jesuits, as happened shortly afterwards. Rudolph's name figures first on the list of those who declared, after the Jesuits took over the direction, that they were ready to go at any time to the mission in England. In 1580 he left for his homeland in the group led by Bishop Goldwell. In Milan they spent a week in the house of St. Charles Borromeo, and Father Sherwin preached before him. From Paris he wrote to his friend Rudolph Bickley in Rome, telling him of the adventures they had had in Geneva. He ended the letter by saying that he was obliged to interrupt it because Father Paschal already wants to set to work on the task of Frenching me. In other words, he had to wear a layman's costume to disguise himself, something he disliked very much. The last words of that letter are the following: "My dear Rudolph, I beg you, with all your fervor, to pray the rosary for me once and see to it that many of my friends do the same, so that with humility and constancy I may persevere to the end and honor the Lord in the vocation to which he has called me, in spite of my unworthiness." The missionaries separated in Rheims. On August 1st, Rudolph Sherwin sailed for England. In November, he was arrested while preaching in London at the house of Nicholas Roskerrick and was sent to the Marshalsea prison. Speaking of his brief apostleship, Father Persons wrote that he had preached in various cities and that in that ministry he had authority and a special grace. From prison, the Blessed managed to get a humorous errand to Father Persons, in which he spoke of the bells he wore on his ankles. A month later, he was transferred to the Tower of London. On December 15th, he was brutally tortured on the rack so that he would inform on other missionaries and tell what he knew about a hypothetical invasion of Ireland. The executioners left him lying in the snow and the next day tortured him again. Blessed told his brother that, after the torture, he had spent 5 days in the dungeon without eating or speaking to anyone. It was like a dream before the crucified Savior. At the end of that space of time I regained my senses, but I experienced no pain in my joints, even though the torment had been extremely violent. The persecutors offered Father Rudolph the government of a see if he would apostatize. After more than a year in prison, he was tried with Edmund Campion and others, accused of having gone to England to provoke a rebellion. The Blessed Man remarked to his judges, "The reason we are being tried is religion, not treason." While the day of execution was approaching, Rudolph wrote to several friends and to an uncle of his, who was in Rouen and had previously exercised the priestly ministry in Ingatestone. In this last letter he said, "Innocence is my only consolation in the midst of all the accusations made against my brothers in the priesthood and me. May God forgive so much injustice, convert our persecutors, and make them teachers of the faith. So, my good John, farewell." On December 1st, 1581, he was taken to Tyburn in the same wagon in which Alexander Bryant was riding. He was executed after Edmund Campion. On the scaffold, he protested that he was innocent of all treason, professed the Catholic faith, and prayed for the Queen. The crowd was praying aloud when he was executed. He was then 31 years old. Rudolph Sherwin was one of the martyrs beatified in 1886. His feast is celebrated in the Diocese of Nottingham. He was the proto-martyr of the English College in Rome.